what it looks like to rethink marketing and executing youth ministry.
All of the different ministries were represented. They all had a team. They had walk-up music.
But sometimes you need those extra hooks in the water and a different format, a different layout.
Relationships with parents or friendships, and it was just amazing. So,
Hey, welcome to the Rethinking Youth Ministry podcast. My name is Shane, and I'm here with three incredible people that I'm excited for you to hear from. We're having a conversation about what it looks like to rethink marketing and executing youth ministry events, which sounds really intense, but these are the best people to have this conversation with. Right next to me is the one and only. Would you introduce yourself?
こんにちは。僕の名前は橋口愛部です。
Yeah, I understood all that. That's
So,
amazing, man.
yeah.
And that was Japanese. I feel like you should say
That-
that for
that
people.
was
Some people are
Japanese.
like, what? What?
That was
Did
that
I-
was a connection that I was making with
That
my
was
Japanese
amazing.
partners.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
And everybody needs to know that. That was incredible. All the way from the Pacific Northwest up in Washington is my friend Sarah. Sarah, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. I work at Bethany Church. I'm the junior high director there. Been doing it for 7 years. So that's where
That's
I'm
amazing.
at. Puyallup, Washington. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Sarah, we're glad you're here. And the one and only Mr. Chris Cox. Would you remind everybody who you are?
hello, everybody. My name is Chris Cox. I am one of the next gen pastors at Change Church in Atlanta. And actually, at the date that we're recording this is my 1 year anniversary working there at Change on staff.
congrats.
So
Congrats.
that's
man.
exciting. But I've been in student ministry for about 17 years. And I'm just excited to share some of my experience and things that I'm rethinking with you guys today.
That's amazing. I love that, man. We're glad you're here. I kind of want to start I want us to reflect a little bit on our individual experiences. Can you all share just maybe your favorite event you ever did as a youth pastor? What's your favorite event?
My favorite event, it was called the Young Love Summit. We had a lot of students in our student ministry that were exploring relationships, and we wanted to do something special for them that just didn't talk about like relationships like between romantic relationships, but even relationships with parents or friendships and things like that. So we created the Young Love Summit, and it was just amazing. So
Ayubu, I know you had something. What were you going to say?
Well, I was gonna say mine was it, and we had it was a church-wide event that we were doing. So we were raising money for malaria, like for nets, malaria nets.
Oh, nice.
And so we raised like $15,000
Wow.
with a church-wide event, and it was church-wide, like multi-generational. We had I just reached out and made sure like all different ministries, so like the music ministry of the church, like in our senior adult ministry, our youth ministry, and all of the different ministries were represented. They all had a team. They had walk-up music, and they had and it was an amazing event. And it was just people in our church still talk about that.
Dang, that's super cool.
And it was just awesome. Just to be able to raise money for an event, and so to raise that much money was really, really cool.
Oh, I love that.
So
I love that. That's really cool. Sarah, what do you got?
Oh man, I've been really rethinking like my events these past couple of years. So it was really hard to choose. But we do like these events. They're like my favorites. They're like huge community outreach events that we call like U-Turn. And I've been like we've been like renaming like a theme for each one. We do like 3 every school year. And so we did like a glow turn that we did for the first time a couple years ago, and we like took over the entire church and like blacklit it. We had laser tag, and I had like a glow up station where they got to like put on like war paint, and we had like 5 times the amount of students that usually come to group would come to that, like kids that have never stepped foot in a church before. And it was just they're just great events that like get kids that like don't go to church, don't hear about Jesus, or are a part of a community like that, like into a space to get to like just, have fun for an evening for 4 hours. It's like 7 to 11 p.m. I think that's like been one of my favorite events I've gotten to like put on the past couple years. Glow Turn.
That's awesome. I love that. I got to share mine. So we did this event called Best Weekend Ever. They're actually still doing it at the church that I was at in Arizona. And I think it was really fun to name it Best Weekend Ever, but it also felt like we had to deliver on that every year. So it kind of put an expectation on ourselves by naming it that. But it was just so fun. It was basically our like D-Now in town, retreat. And it was like small group centric. We did host homes. They did like outings at different places, Top Golf or pottery painting or all that kind of stuff. And one year, we had so many fun things, like a giant slip and slide, all that. But one year we did a hot air balloon. It was we did tethered hot air balloon rides, which like was kind of a dream for a while, and we were able to pull it off. And it was like we found some like smaller kind of like boutique hot air balloon company in the area, and they worked something out with us, and we got waivers signed, and it was a lot of fun. One, the photos were amazing, so we're going to talk about marketing here in a second, but the photos were incredible. But two, one of our values in the youth ministry was unforgettable experiences, because we always wanted them to be able to tie back positive, incredible experiences to the local church. Let me ask you all this. A lot has changed in the world as a whole, but in the youth ministry world over the last few years, or maybe I should ask y'all, why do events still matter in youth ministry?
I just think when you take them out of their normal environment and you put them into places that maybe an experience that they wouldn't typically get to experience, or or be in a smaller knit community through an event, I think there's an opportunity for people to experience deeper relationships. Like, as a matter of fact, I mean, I always do so I have my small group boys, I have them like, and it's just a small event, but I walk through them, and we always do a senior trip. And last year, I have a bunch of boys that come from an apartment complex that I've just been able to like reach out to, meet, and they've just slowly joined our small group over the years. And so last year we went on our senior trip, and they returned and just told me that was the first time they've ever experienced true brotherly love.
Wow.
And so that's why events matter.
Cool. That's
right?
really cool.
I mean, because they were taken out of their normal environment in a place that they had never, like, just going to a cabin with, a group of guys. They just have never done that.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, everything was just like, they were just new experiences constantly.
Yep.
Just conversations in a smaller community, or even in an event, just these different things, put them into places, and they just experience life in a different way.
That's cool.
And so it really was impactful for them.
I love that.
That's why I think it's so important to
relationships.
do that.
I mean, that's key in everything that we do. Sarah, I'm curious for your perspective on this. Why would you say events still matter in youth ministry?
I think events still matter because, like, think about how busy, like, a junior high kid is these days, a high school kid. I feel like their schedules have really, like, picked up. And especially, like, for kids that, like, aren't in the boat yet. Like, they don't believe, they don't go to church, they don't come to, like, youth group or anything like that. Like, sometimes, like, I have found, like, events snag those kids that wouldn't otherwise, like, be coming and, like, hearing about Jesus or experiencing Jesus in these different, like, relational ways. And so, like, these events sometimes are just, like, an extra hook out in the water that snags, like, all those kids, like, to hopefully get them in the boat, Like, there's no other thing. Like, why would they just randomly come to, like, youth group, Like, they're not a believer. They're like, why are they like, yeah, I want to go hear about Jesus tonight. Like, that sounds like a fun time. But sometimes you need those extra hooks in the water and a different format, a different layout for connections to happen, for different experiences. And that's what I feel like has begun so many different stories that I've seen over the years with kids, and like their relationship with God is just getting them somewhere and out of their like usual routine into a spot where they have the opportunity to hear about Jesus.
Yeah, that's really good. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I think events are a great invitation into a deeper connection. Those events give you more capacity to like use your creativity to reach students where they are, to show them your level of investment. And a lot of times that's that thing that helps, them stick to what you're really trying to do, which is to get them involved and connected and discipled. So I just see it as a great way, a great front door or invitation into a deeper connection.
That's good. What I want to go really practical. Like that's really what I want kind of the rest of our conversation to be. We want to talk about marketing and executing these events. So you've given us a little bit of the why behind the why events still matter, but let's just talk. You all are experts in this area. You all can do incredible events. You can pull them off. You can plan them really well. What are some of your strategies for planning an event, but not just planning a great event, actually getting it done? Because that is one thing I know I've experienced plenty of times. Like we can have all the great ideas in the world, but how do we get this thing done to where we can walk away from it and not just walk away from that event? Because I know follow up's a part of it, but where we can get this event done in a way that delivers on all of the dreams that we had for it.
Yeah, I think um, engaging and involving students is super important when it comes to planning. Not planning on the island by yourself, but actually getting students involved. I feel like, um, and this is a little bit on the marketing piece, but I feel like one of the greatest billboards for any event is an excited and engaged student.
It's good.
And I've kind of seen that happen. One of the times that really just comes to the forefront of my mind is a lock-in I did. It was the last
Mm.
lock-in I did, Shane. I'm almost anti-lock-ins after
There you
this
go.
lock-in.
There
Nah,
you
let me
go.
stop. But I remember, I remember planning this lock-in and engaging some students, and I really got them excited about it. And I kept saying after Sunday, invite your friends. But
Mm.
honestly, I didn't think they would, but they
Mm.
did.
Mm-hmm.
And then their friends came, and it was a lot of them, more than
Mm-hmm.
I had pizza for, you know? And so it was a lot of students that showed up. And so I've learned through that is that that's the greatest billboard for an event is just students who are excited. But in order to get that excitement, there needs to be some investment on their part. And you get that by engaging them in the planning process as well.
That's good. Chris, I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about that. How do you engage students in the planning for your events?
Yeah, just bringing them. I remember at one point I used to have creative planning meetings with students. Some of the students who were some of the most consistent ones, and then some of the students who were kind of checking things out. But I could tell they had creative potential, and I just would invite them into a space. Get some pizza or some snacks put out, and then some sticky notes, and just say, "Hey, let's dream of." An event. So I would give them some vision. I would give them like an idea or just something to start from, but then
Mm-hmm.
say like, how can we communicate this message in the most creative ways that you think your friends would want to experience? And so just bringing them in on that and just allowing them to just talk and to uh, even give ideas of what they would want to see themselves doing at the event.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I love that. Sarah, I got to be with you all at a camp last summer. I got to speak at your summer camp, which was so much fun. And I think one of the things you all do really well is you've created a really great event, but you've done it in a really like intimate way. I know, there's not pretension around it. Like it feels approachable for every student. What are the ways, or maybe some of your pro tips on how you execute a great event like that?
I think like the base of it is knowing your students, like knowing
Mm.
what kids are coming and like being involved in that like community. I don't plan an event with just one kid in mind or just like my girls in mind. Like I have to think of every kid that could be coming
That's good.
and make sure that there's something there for them, that there's someone there for them. And so every time I like go into planning camp or events, I'm always thinking like, how can I reach the farthest out kid? How am I going to make sure that the farthest out kid is ready to engage and will feel safe in this environment, in this experience at camp? Because camp is terrifying. Like think about like a kid that's being like tossed in there by a parent that's like making
Yep.
them go. They don't want to be there. They don't know anybody.
Yep.
And then it's just like an event that just like they didn't think about me at all. Like I wasn't on there. Like that would suck. That would feel absolutely isolating and awful. And you want every kid to like walk in, like we talked about belonging, right? Like you want every kid to know like they have a space to like belong. And
That's
so
good.
it's thinking about like where that furthest kid is out and having something for all of them within every aspect that you're planning. Like you're planning a camp. It's not just like the talks. And I honestly, this might sound like extra, you're like, what is she talking about? I don't think the talks are the most important part about camp. I think kids are seeing a lot more about God through the way that we treat them and through the way that we plan for them in everything than just standing on top of a stage and speaking for 15 minutes. I think it's in the way that you train like your leaders to engage with them, how you're planning cabins, what you're doing like for rec and making sure like more than just the sporty kids can hang. It's making it so that everybody feels like it's a level playing field, even if a 7th grader is coming up against like a senior, you know, like you need to be able to have something for each kid. And it comes into planning from rec to cabins to cabin time, to the talks, to having more than just the talk when you come and meet together, like having a fun, engaging moment that any kid would be willing to do.
Yeah.
And it's just
that's
knowing,
so good.
it's knowing the people.
Yeah, that's so good. So knowing everyone, and then I feel like what Chris shared with us is almost like a follow-up to that. Like in order, or once you've identified, you know, maybe different students who are going to be in your event spaces, then involving those students and giving them representation. Ayubu, what would you add as far as a strategy for executing well?
Well, and going back to kind of what Sarah talked about and Chris talked about, I loved like Sarah mentioned, even the importance of cabin placement. And I think so many youth pastors think about like, oh, well, we don't want these students to stay in their cliques and they want them to get to know new people. So we're going to like forcefully put people into these like different cabin setups.
Yeah.
And you think to yourself like, yeah, but if you went to a retreat as an adult, would you want that?
Yeah, that's an
And
introvert's nightmare.
I know, right? And we sometimes forget because we're trying to be the youth pastor. It's like, oh, we want everybody to be together. And we forget even that matters. And imagine ourselves in that room. How would we feel if we were like forced to have community with people we didn't quite know? When we're already, that's what we're like trying to get ourselves to do outside of the rooms. And so we don't give them that safe space. You know, every once in a while, just to be able to be like, okay, I just need a little moment where I'm not trying to like impress or trying to like be somebody that maybe I'm not, and I can just be somebody with my like group in my room. So I just think even thinking, just not forcing that in every little moment is a good thing.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, I just think, and I love like Chris talking about like kids having an involvement in of it. Like when you talk about like the advertisement of it, right? I mean, I think it's so important. And I just like, I remember like, I would always look at the registration and I would always make sure like I updated my small group leaders about what kids had signed up. So then the small group leader could like go, oh, hey, and I'm going to be on the trip. I'm so glad like John that you're going and Sam that you're going to be there. And then that they could then intentionally talk about to the other students, hey, like, why aren't you coming? Like, I would love for you to be there. And so it just made the kids like, oh, I'm signed up, and that leader's already excited about me coming, and he knows that I'm signed up. So like that part of it like is important too of executing a really, really good event in a retreat. Is letting leaders know too about like who signed up, and then encouraging other kids that aren't there. But yeah, I mean, I just think kids promote well. And you've got to make sure that your event is something that students are excited about. Like that's why, I mean, I think we think about all these cool things because we see it on like a youth pastor's page, or we see it on like TikTok or Instagram, and we're like, well, maybe we can recreate this for us. And the kids are like, I'm not interested in that.
That's true.
And so I think, you know, what Chris said, like involving students is so valuable.
Yeah, that's good. If you'd like to tell us what you're rethinking, you can DM us at Orange Students, and maybe we'll have a conversation right here on the Rethinking Youth Ministry podcast about that. Thanks so much for this conversation. We'll see you next time.